good, America? This is Reggie Florima, a.k.a. Big Flo, one half of the Hard Truth, along with my co-host, Oliver Gibson. We make the Big Flo O Show. What's good, Oliver?
What's going on, man? Happy Pandemic Saturday to you.
Hey, man. We're here to live another day, here to podcast another day. It looks beautiful outside, but I think the snow is on the horizon, so I'm just going to look at it from afar and stay corona-free if I can. So,
yeah, you know what they say in the Midwest, if you don't like the weather, just wait 2 hours. It'll change on you.
Yeah, definitely in Chicago. So, man, we got a great show today, my friend. Great show. Got a great guest. I can't wait to show him. So, without further ado, the next person on our show is a consensus All-American, a Walter Camp Award winner, a Heisman Trophy runner-up, a Gibson Trophy winner, Grey Cup champion, Grey Cup MVP, and last year joined the NCAA Football Hall of Fame. A 12-year pro, again, one of my childhood heroes, although he's only 5 years older than me, but one of my childhood heroes anyway. Without further ado, RAGHIB, ROCKET ISHMAIL.
The man, the myth, the legend. What up, Rock?
What's good, family? Y'all good?
Yeah, man, really well. You're down in Texas, right?
Yes, sir, right here in Dallas.
Okay, well, you know, it's funny because the other day I was talking to Reg and we started talking about, different subject matter for the shows. And one of them was going to be the 5 toughest players I've ever played against. And, you know, surprisingly, but not surprisingly, you're on the list. And I say surprisingly because I never really actually ran into you in the NFL and played against you. But in college, I did play against you when I was on scout team. And it's kind of funny because you almost made me quit college football. And the situation was as such. We were in Loftus. Our indoor practice facility. It was a rainy day. And, Coach Joe Moore used to say, if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying. So I used to crowd the ball so I could hear the play coming out of the quarterback's mouth, out of Rick Meyer's mouth. So then I would sit there and I would get the play and I get the snap count. And then, boom, I'm ready to go. So I line up. I'm playing defensive end. Playing defensive end, I'm on the right side. Ricky Waters starts motioning to the other side, starts running toward the other side. There you come. You're coming on the other side with the reverse. You're coming back my way. So instead of pursuing Ricky, I climb vertically because that's how you defend a sweep. So at this moment, it was when I realized, you know how they say that's when keeping it real goes wrong. Mm-hmm. So I'm sitting there thinking, all right, I'm going to smack Rock a little bit and I'm going to get a little tap on him and just let him know, who I am. What happened was you saw me coming. You started taking a shallow path. You took a hard step on your right foot. I lifted my foot up, and all this happened in a split second, to take a step with my left foot to keep my shoulder square. You then, in midair, changed your path, went wide, and as you went wide, you gave me a hard step inside. I then did the splits and didn't touch you, and you went right around me, right outside my grasp, and I literally did the splits and almost tore my crotch open, and that's when I realized it's a whole nother ball game. I mean, I've never seen a human being readjust that fast. And that's one of the things that people slept on when it came to you. Of course, you always heard about the rocket and the speed, but your balance and your agility is unreal. So thank you I've never actually touched you in life. And I've touched everybody in practice I could. I've never actually, I think I dapped you up before. That's the closest I've ever got to you, man. So you're an amazing player.
He's too fast to shake hands with? Is that what you're saying? He's too quick to touch?
I've never touched him. I just want to give him a little shot on the shoulder.
Give him a little shot. Next time, Rocky, let him give you a little shot next time, man. He owes you that. About 25 years in the making. Give you a little shot.
Bro, let me tell you something. That was a response that I would not have. I would not want that result to happen to any of my teammates at all. No splits, no kind of injuries, nothing.
Bro, like, it was embarrassing.
It was pure survival, bro. That's the number one human instinct, man. Like survival. So like that thing just kicked in and took over. So I apologize.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Y'all good. Hug it out, man. Hug it out.
Nothing but love. Trust me. In my heart of hearts, when I'm conscious and I'm operating on a conscious level, nothing but love, brother.
I tell you,
so, what made me feel better is one of my favorite hip hop groups, and I think we've talked about this before. Pete Rock and CL Smooth in '92 had a line where they said, "It kind of reminds me of when ROCKET ISHMAIL played for Notre Dame, invincibility with no vulnerability." And I was like, "You damn right." And once I heard that on record, I'm like, "Okay, I don't feel
so bad." They're rapping about stuff like this. They're rapping about it.
Exactly.
My Rocket stories,
Okay.
unfortunately, we never had the opportunity to play together. So you were leaving school as I came in as a recruit. So two stories about you. Obviously, I'm at home. I'm a Notre Dame fan since I was a child. I'm watching these games and everything. So, I want to see you guys, And you were leaving practice. And this just said a lot to me about who you were as a person and brings things down to earth. Because I'm thinking the Rocket, this dude's got a nickname and everything. And some little kid, you're signing an autograph for him. And he's like, how fast are you? And you're like, how fast am I? Hold on. And you backpedaled about 20 feet, 20 yards or something. And then you just ran full speed by this kid and made his life, man. And I was like, damn, that was about the coolest way that you could describe how fast you are to somebody and do that. And then, fast forward, you actually walked stage with us. I graduated a little early. That was my claim to fame. And you came back and graduated. And we're at Black graduation. And I'm thinking, okay, there goes Rocket again. Okay, this dude's probably got on like a $10,000 suit underneath this. This is making all this money and all that kind of stuff. You walk across stage, you kind of pimp it across the stage. You throw your arms up, your gown goes up. You have on like shorts and Jordans. I was like, oh no. I'm over here trying to look as sweet as I can look. This dude is like, whatever, man. I just stopped by to pick up this diploma right quick, and then I'm going to make my move. Man, that was the craziest thing. But to me, it just said like how down to earth you are. And every time I've run into you since then, how down to earth you are versus, some of the people that you get around in sports. So I commend you for that, my brother. And again, thank you for coming on our show.
Thank you, man. And one of the things, just to that point, and especially now that I'm way older, one of the things that I realize is so important for every human's life to be able to reach their full potential. The reason why that, when you talked about being able to access, just a humble spirit, was I remember when my father died. I was 10 years old, and then we had to move to Pennsylvania. We fast forwarded. We had to move to Pennsylvania with my grandmother. She was 77 at the time, and sometimes, and I understand this now. I didn't understand it then. But sometimes there are reoccurring patterns in your early life that you might not understand, but some of them are for the purpose of protecting you later in life from what you don't even know is coming or about to happen. And one of the things that my grandmother always said to me, and she was saying it in a way that it kind of befuddled me, so that she said, pride comes before destruction, a haughty spirit before a fall. And she would say it at the weirdest times. It would be like any type of praise that was coming towards me. It was like, hey, remember, pride comes before destruction, a haughty spirit before a fall. Or when I started getting a notoriety in the paper and people would call her and be like, oh, wow, I saw your grandson do this, saw your grandson do that. And she would just say, hey, remember, pride comes before destruction, a haughty spirit before a fall. And so how I interpreted that was, man, okay, don't be proud, don't be arrogant. And I would use, whenever the people would give me praise or somebody would say nice about something I did, I would try to deflect, and I would have my disposition would be, no, and I'm not really, or I'm not really this. Well, that's really I've learned that that's the wrong response. The proper response is always to say thank you and never speak out of your mouth ill about yourself. And a lot of people do that because they want to show the person that's praising them that they're coming from a place of humility. But one thing that they also don't realize that they're doing is that they can become an unwitting participant in their own demise. And so being able to, like what you saw, I understood, okay, there were certain actions to make people feel comfortable, to make people feel, to let them know I appreciated them appreciating me. Mm-hmm. So actions like that, and it's like, I don't even remember that.
I'm sure you don't. Yeah, I knew you wouldn't remember it, but when you're a kid coming up like myself, and I'm trying to go, I'm trying to get where you're at, right? I'm trying to come to the University of Notre Dame. I'm looking at this, and you don't know how to be. You're on these recruiting visits, and you don't know how you're supposed to carry yourself. I could go on for some bad advice that people gave me about what I should do, as opposed to someone just saying be yourself and go to school. People tell you different things, but you're looking and you're like, okay, what's going to happen next? How's he going to act? And I'm thinking, man, that was cool as hell. That was like He's tired as hell. He just came off of a practice. But you're thinking, okay, I'm going to sign this autograph and I can just be out. Nope. Let me make this kid's day. And you didn't treat it like you're making a big deal. But it's funny. When people watch you, you see characters shine through and do different things like that. And, it just says a lot. So, what the people are going to want to hear, there's a lot of, I got young and old here. Everybody who knows Rocket, it's a great guest to have. Let's talk a bit through your career. Let's just start. We lost Oliver from the technical difficulty, but if he comes back on, we'll do good. Otherwise, we'll just keep it moving. How'd you pick Notre Dame?
So literally the first college experience that I can remember was when I was in Jersey, and that was the mighty Georgia Bulldogs and Herschel Walker, because he was just a national phenomenon. And then I remember them playing against Penn State. And those are my first two kind of, all right, this is college football. Then when I told you my father died when I was 10, we moved to Pennsylvania, and my best friend went out for football. I went out football, and what would become my best friend was another young man whose dad moved him to the area because he wanted him to play for our high school football coach, who actually was a Notre Dame grad. He played on the team. He had a bunch of injuries, but that was the relationship with him. His name was Brian DeWire. The relationship with him was my first introduction to Notre Dame. And it happened because my grandmother, after probably about a year, was confident enough and trusted their family enough that she let me sleep over their house. And I remember going there, and when we were in the basement, we were playing in like his dad like a back in the day man cave.
Yeah.
We were down there playing
one of the original man caves, right?
Exactly, man. Lico business. He had Notre Dame paraphernalia all over the place. I didn't know what was going on.
Mm-hmm.
We ended up falling asleep, and I have a dream. And in the dream, I smell this like really sweet aroma.
Mm-hmm.
But then all of a sudden, there was like an abrupt sound that I heard, and it startled me. And I woke up out of the dream, and I didn't know where I was. I was like, where am I? I look around, and I look around, and his dad, they used to have lazy boy chairs back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
His dad was sitting in his lazy boy, smoking a pipe, and he had just put on the album of the Notre Dame marching band, and the pipe had the aroma that I was smelling,
mm-hmm.
and the noise that I heard was the announcer of the album saying, he said, "Ladies and gentlemen, introducing the Notre Dame marching band playing the song of the Fighting Irish." And then he like all of a sudden broke out into the
Victory
actual fight song and victory march. And after I heard that, he said he smiled. He had his glasses on that made his eyes kind of magnify, look like Mr. Magoo. And he said, "You hear that, Laddie Buck? That's the finest band in the land. Get over here. Let me tell you about the Fighting Irish." And he put in a video cassette into what was, it was still, they had VHS and they had Beta.
Mm-hmm.
And VHS went out in the market. He put the VHS in, and this little television screen, no bigger than my computer monitor, he showed me a documentary called Wake Up to Echoes. And as I'm watching it, it felt like the way it was presented, it felt like I was watching like a mythical story, like, the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, or your boy Tolkien and Lord of the Rings. Like, it felt like that.
Mm-hmm. And
as it was playing, he was like, "You're gonna go there one day." And I was like, "Wait, what? This imaginary place?" He's like, "No." And from that point, that was when the seed was planted. And then every day in the summer, when we were cleaning out the varsity lockers, we were rearranging the pads. Whenever he was a volunteer coach, he would take a break. He would come in, take a pipe break, and he would tell us a new story about some Notre Dame fact, legend, or something. And then he would always look at me and be like, "You're going to go there one day. You're going to be legendary just like these people, I'm telling you, like he was planting a seed like that.
I'm pretty sure that's a violation. I don't know. We need to go back and check.
Right.
I don't know. You get that insider recruiting going on. I'm just joking.
Yo, if he would be like, you're going there one day and handing me a
sandwich,
$150 check from his business, that might have been on that level.
Hey, we'll get there before the calls. But this show is over. We'll talk about those $150 handshakes might become legal soon. But we'll get back. We digress. So you come out. So the guy's telling you all the time you're going there. Fast forward a little bit now. What choices did you come down to between what schools?
So that was, and this is no exaggeration. The only reason I took visits to the other schools was two reasons. The first reason was any guys that were coming after me, I wanted our coach and the relationship with that, whatever that university was, to remain good so that they wouldn't have like an attitude if somebody was kind of on they were like, maybe they wanted to recruit them or maybe they didn't, but because they had a good relationship, they let them come up on a recruiting visit or something like that. I didn't want to mess that up. Mm-hmm. And then the second thing was, back in the day, steak and lobster and shrimp was like the epitome of fine dining. And so I was like looking forward to that. And so my visits that I took was Syracuse, because Randy Edsall was their main recruiter back in the day, and Syracuse was really good. We used to go to all the Syracuse games. And Syracuse, their football camp, the summer before my senior year, that was the first time I ran a 4.3 in the Carrier Dome at their camp. So it had
you ran 4.3 before that was a thing too. That was like now everybody claims to run a 4.3. They got linemen running 4.3s now, but you did that before it was a thing. The inaugural 4.3.
Bro, that was a huge, like it was crazy. People were like, the actual coaches, and you gotta remember, it might have been 300 campers were all in the Carrier Dome. And back in the day, Syracuse, man, Don McPherson, Dick McPherson was the coach, Don McPherson was the quarterback. Man, they had that home field advantage. Any team in the country that played there, they was going to be in trouble. And it was a big deal. All the children were there, and they lined us up and just kind of made us run 40s. You run the 40, the coach gives you time, you take it back and give it to the guy to start, and then the next person. It was just kind of like a cattle call, if you will. Man, I run my 40, and Randy Edsall was one of the timers, and then I think maybe Ivan Fears and one of them was another timer. I came back to get my time, and they were both looking at their watches like they were just like, what am I looking at? And then Randy Edsall asked the other coach, he's like, what time did you get? He's like, looking at us like, he's like, no, what time did you get? And they were like, they looked at me, and they were like, hey, can you run that again? So I ran back down to the start. They were like, okay, what was your time? I was like, well, they didn't give it to me. They told me to run it again. And so all of a sudden, I run it again. Man, as I come back to get my time, they're both talking to each other. And then they walk over by where the stands are, where all the like high school coaches are, and just a bunch of different parents and stuff like that. And I come to get my time. They're like, no, go back down to the start. And I went down there, and he was like, hey, what was your time? He said, they told me just to come down here. And literally, they all put their comms together. They're like, man, he ran a 4.3 2 times, and on their little stopwatches. And then it was like an audible wave and they were about 45 yards away from us. And it came down. They were like, 4.3. And by the time
at this time, do you know that you can run a 4.3, or is this the first time you figured out you could run a 4.3?
Nope. I knew I was fast because I was faster than everybody on the team. And when a freshman, which was the only time I was clocked in high school in the 40, I ran a 4.7. So a 4.7, I was about, and when I was a freshman, I weighed about 95 pounds. No, matter of fact, maybe 90 pounds. I was tiny. And that was the last time. So in my mind, I'm thinking 4.7 must be fast because I'm faster than everybody I race against, everybody you play against. And on my freshman teams, that doggone 4.3 was like, oh, wait a minute. And then immediately after that, my coach was like, you know what, we're not even going to go participate in this camp. We're going home. And then that spread across the country. And then, man, everything else, just the timing. Coach Holtz Paterno, Pitt, any coach that was trying to get out there, they came through. But Notre Dame was already ingrained in me, so it was just like that was where I was going to go, even if I didn't get a chance to go there.
And I'm sure you probably walked in there, you smelled Coach Holtz's pipe, and brought you back to the room where you saw the movie with the guy, and then boom, it was done. So you come to Notre Dame, you start playing, you have a great career, All-American, should have won the Heisman for some reason. Ty Detmer somehow got the vote. We won't talk about that. Should have won the Heisman, projected to be the first pick in the NFL draft. You decide to do a Herschel Walker move. Who else did a famous move like this? I don't really know if there's another one that was as big as this. And you said, you know what, I'm going to go to Canada. I'm not going to go to the NFL. I'm going to go to the Canadian League. I'm going to be part owner. I mean, the stories, I don't know how much is true, but like you're part owner of the league or something like that. They make you something. Talk to us about the decision to decide to not go to the NFL right away and go to Canada.
Okay, so back in the day, well, matter of fact, it's still in place. It's a little more sophisticated now, but back in the day, if you were projected to be the first pick of the NFL draft, you had to sign a contract before the draft. That was because of John Elway. When he was the first pick, they didn't sign a contract with him. So Baltimore Colts signed him, but he didn't want to go to the Colts. So he went and played baseball with the New York Yankees. And after that happened, they were like, okay, how do we prevent this from happening again? So the first pick had to sign. So I'm talking out of Grace Hall. I'm on a doggone conference call, and 5 teams had the potential to have the first pick. I remember talking to Cowboys, Falcons, Browns, Patriots, and maybe Washington might have been the 15. I can't remember that 15, but all of a sudden, and this was and everybody offered the contract, which was $1.5 million for a 5-year term with a $400,000 signing bonus, and then the rest of the money would be prorated over the balance of the 5 years. And in my mind, I was like, well, man, $1.5 million. And I knew that was a lot of money, but in my mind, I was like, it seems like somebody would offer me a little more if they thought they were going to be the one to get it, but that was the deal. So I was like, well, I guess you're stuck. You're the only league in town. What you going to do?
Yeah, right.
And about 2 days later, we get a call from my attorney. He's like, hey, we just got a call from a guy out in Los Angeles who owns the Los Angeles Kings. And long story short, he says he's offering $4 million a year, personal services contract. He is offering ownership in the team, so a 10% stake in the team. And if they sell I think they bought it for $3 million. If they sell for over $3 million, that's going to be the deal. And he wants to fly you out to Los Angeles to talk about what the plans are and whatever. I get out there. Turns out there's this actor named John Candy. He was a comedic actor back in the day, real big time from Canada. There was a hockey player named Wayne Gretzky, who was like the baddest cat on the planet back in the day in the hockey realm. And then Bruce McNall, he owned this movie production company. He owned this rare collectible company, and he owned racehorses. And they flew me out there, wine and dined me. And it's crazy because when I flew out there, they sent the car to Grace Hall. I went downstairs, got in the stretch, and you know how you go to the airport. Well, I'm going to the airport, but he drives past the airport to another section, and like temporarily, in my mind, I was like, yo, I was like, that's the air.
Okay, being kidnapped, yeah.
He drove to the clear port.
Yeah,
yo, you know what I'm saying, man? And he was, and it was like he said, your plane. He's like, okay, you just go doors, and your plane will be waiting for you. And I'm thinking in my mind, okay, he meant to say my ticket will be waiting for you,
yeah, right.
But he didn't. He meant to say your plane will be waiting for you. I went out there, and the doggone team plane for the Los Angeles Kings was sitting on the tarmac. I mean, this thing was huge, and it was the captain, his co-captain, and a flight attendant waiting at the stairs for me. And I get up, go on that mug. This entire plane is laid out with the most lavish cornucopia of food and gifts and trinkets and all kinds of amazingness. And they were like, Mr. Ismail, this is all for you. And the lady was like, hey, whatever you need, I got you. And the captain was like, hey, you want to take off normal or you want to take off like a rocket? I'm like, wait, what? And he's like, we're going to take off like a rocket. And he fired that thing up. And, usually you go down the runway, he'll go in a gradual. Man, that thing went like, he just hit the jets. That bad boy, it might have. So if it takes 200 feet for a plane to take off, it only took us 50 feet. It was so fast. Get up, land in Los Angeles. I'm wearing my roommate's clothes. So because Rusty had outgrew his clothes, so I'm wearing his clothes. They took me immediately to Rodale Drive, whole new set of clothes. Took me to the Forum Club back at the day, which was all the high level cats was. Met Sylvester Stallone and all his girls. Met Bob Golick at the game. I saw him. I remember him. I knew my indie history because Mr. Dwyer used to tell us about all those cats. And man, I went and had the meeting with McNall, and high level dollar cats talk to other high level dollar cats, and the NFL was the talks in that realm and that level was the NFL was going to expand. And McNall told me that their plan was to have the rights to the NFL when they were thinking about expanding, and they wanted to put a team in Toronto. And so he gave me ownership in that. He's like, man, whenever all this stuff goes down, you're going to be a part of it. And so I was like, all this, and then 1.5 million for 5 years. I like, man, it don't take a genius. I'm coming to Canada. And that was it.
And they can't touch you in Canada, so you figure it's going to be easy. So how long of a contract was it that you signed for?
It was 4 years, and ended up doing 2 years. The third year, McNall got into some trouble with the feds, and I ended up coming early. I got drafted. So once we knew I was coming to Canada, then Ralph Wiley, who was kind of the lead of my team, he was helping me get the people together. We had ProServe for the marketing agency. There was David Falk in them, and then we had.
ProServe represented Jordan eventually, right?
Oh yeah, that was representing them at the time, as a matter of fact. Man, I good Jordan stories too. Then we had Morcom, these brothers out of Oakland as my agents, and then I had John Edwards as my attorney out of San Francisco, and all of that whole team that we put together. We went to Canada, and I lost my train of thought. What was my?
Why you came back to the NFL?
Oh, he asked me. Ralph Wiley asked me. He was like, "Hey, what team in the NFL do you want to play for?" And so, me knowing what I know now, I would have picked the team that had the best quarterback and had the best kind of receiving results. But back then, I was just thinking. Okay, I heard Al Davis likes fast guys, and Los Angeles ain't going to be bad to play in. Nice weather, whatever. I said the Raiders. We called the Raiders and were like, hey, he wants to play for you guys, but he's going to Canada. Man, Al Davis ended up the next day in the draft choosing me in the 4th round with the 100th pick. And that is how I got to Los Angeles.
Okay, so
you were a 4th round draft pick too, huh?
Yep, a number 100.
I feel better about myself.
So you got drafted in that 4th round, like the year that you came, or like before you went to Canada?
The day that I announced I was going to Canada, the next day was the NFL draft. They strategically placed that so they could get the most market buzz, and the draft was the next day. So I got drafted. I don't know if the 4th round was in the first day or if it was in the second day, but
it was the 91 draft, though. It was the 91 draft they drafted you, not when you decided to come back. They drafted you and just held on to your rights?
That's correct.
Okay, so. All right, Oliver, I'm sorry.
Now let's go back to Canada for a second. I know that for a while you held the record for the longest kickoff return. I think it was 87 yards. How long did that stand, or do you know? In the Calgary, I think it was in the Grey Cup.
That's right. I think that's a Grey Cup record, and I think since that was 91, man, we in 2020. It's probably been broken a couple of times over by now. And the reason I say that is because Canada, bro, the field, like I think NFL, what are we like 50 something?
53 and a third. 53 and a third. Yeah.
So you got 53 and a third with Canada's like 55 or maybe 60. Maybe. I'm not sure.
Yeah, maybe even
and
more.
Then it's like 110 yards, and then 20 yard in. So it's just man,
you were at 87, so they could have broken by a couple more yards.
Yeah, man, easy.
I wouldn't say easy, but it was a hell of a record.
I mean, like it's the potential for it to be broken is
right. Gotcha. Because I was thinking, there's only 13 more yards, and you can break it by much.
Somebody,
but no, you're right.
And it was so timely because we were in. I don't know if we were losing, and it was their Super Bowl, it was the Grey Cup. So it was I remember everybody, and it was so cold, and it was like even though I had my cold weather genetics already in place, it freaked me out because it was so cold that the leather on the ball felt like glass. It was like really slippery, and I actually fumbled on a long punt return in the first half. Just kind of crazy that thing. But I remember one of my boy Chris Gaines from Tennessee. At halftime, he was pumping everybody up. And he was like, "We're getting ready to get this ball back, and we're going to make our blocks, and Rocket is going to take it to the house." Man, we went out there. That's exactly what happened. And so it was the timing was like perfect.
Right.
Fantastic. So I'm surprised you said it was cold because the Grey Cup, when does that happen? I know it gets winter in Canada like 12 months a year, but isn't the Grey Cup like in the fall or like the summer?
That's November, son. That was,
that right?
And when I say November in Canada, I think probably the coldest place in the NFL that I played was in Green Bay, and then it was the NFC Championship when I was with Carolina, and I remember it was so cold in that game. I remember coming out to get ready to do my normal pregame routine, and I remember I jogged out, and I used to jog to the far end zone and then come back and then meet with my coach in New Ketchum. Bruh, I jogged out halfway down. I could feel my toes kind of feeling cold. I get to the end zone. I couldn't feel my feet. I went back to the thing. I tried to warm up with by the heater. It couldn't do it. I ran into the locker room, and I didn't come out until kickoff. The coach was like, "Hey, where were you?" I was like, "Bruh, I might have had to have my feet amputated if I came out any sooner." And so that was like the coldest I've ever been outside of what it felt like in Canada.
Right. Now, a quick question. I'm going to take you back to college real quick. So my freshman year was the Orange Bowl, 1990-1991. Where you ran back to kick and supposedly there was a clip. After you ran back, you went to the back of the end zone and you took a knee. Right. How did you feel when you looked back and saw that flag?
So, running into the end zone and a couple of things are happening. It's like your mind is so amazing, man. And so anyway, I realize that I'm running as I get closer to the end zone, I'm running away from the Colorado section and their fans and into our fans in our student section, because I just remember it was like a reverse wave. Everybody was standing up, but as I ran past them, you could see them sitting down in disappointment, but everybody in the end zone stood up and was like, going crazy. I remember getting in the end zone. I think I remember Rod Smith. He's like, he jumped. As a matter of fact, I remember Rod Smith was taunting their punter, saying, "You're not going to catch him. Give up. You're not going to catch him." Something like that. We get in the end zone. Boom, on my knee. I remember Rick had a severe thigh contusion in that game and had to sit out the second half, I think. He comes running onto the field, jumps on top of me, and then I just remember under all of the adulation and like we did it, I heard this in the stadium. Light it down, man. There's a flag on the play.
Yeah.
A flag on the play. And I remember Rick, he was on top of me, and I just remember him looking up when he heard that, and like his head turned around in slow motion and looked up the field, and he was like, no.
One of
And
those
when he
epic
said that,
moments.
I looked down the field from the ground, and I saw a yellow flag down there, and the first feeling was the very opposite of the feeling that I had when I knew they were going to kick it to us. It was a feeling of utter defeat, and like instead of all these positive thoughts like emerging from my heart to encourage me, it was like everything negative just started coming out. So it was like, I was like, man, they're not going to kick it to us again. And I knew that, y'all remember that the special teams was our strength. Like that wasn't a just
that was
a
offense. Yeah, that was offense.
Man, that's off. That exactly.
Yeah.
That's a big play waiting to happen. So I was like, they're not going to kick it to us again. And then I thought, thinking, man, we're not really built for like down the field, throwing the ball like that. We're 3 yards in a cloud of dust. I was like, there's not much time left on the clock. We like everything negative that you could think of. Where before that kick, I was like, we got this. It's on. Coach Holtz was like, I remember him whistling to me before the play. It was like 1:06 on the clock. And at first I thought they weren't going to, I thought they were just going to kick it out of bounds or like kick it out of the end zone. And then they took that penalty and they got backed up like 10 yards. And then I remember Coach Holtz, he whistled. I looked to the sideline and he was like, Rocket, don't fair catch the ball. Your ass needs to middle return. So he gave me the sign to do a middle return, which is all my returns. I love doing middle return because you have the whole field. Man, I give him the thumbs up. The ball's in it. And in my mind, I'm still thinking they're probably going to kick it out of bounds or even kick it further. But once I realized that the ball was not going to go out of bounds and I could catch it, like, every positive thought came in my mind, and the last thought right before the ball, like when the ball hit my hand, the only thing in my mind was like, don't go down. No matter what, don't go down. And then, it was just on. Just doing what we normally do. Boom, break tackle, bounce off back, look at the hole, hit the Jets. When I'm in the end zone, every negative thought came in my mind. And it was like, when I look back on it, it's a shame that you're not as, it's a growth process in this life. But I remember we were in a similar situation against Stanford, and Coach Holtz, he actually drew up a play in the dirt that we never ran before. He just said, hey, run this protection. You do this, you do this, you do this, you do this. And if it wasn't for human error, that play would have worked. And it was like, looking back, I was like, man, if I would have just said, okay, somehow, some way, we'll find a way. Like if I would have just said that to myself, but it was just like I was so defeated that everything that I thought actually happened.
Now, do you ever look back at some of your old footage? Because I had an opportunity last night to watch some old and say, how in the hell did I do that? Right. Because like I said, it wasn't just speed. I mean, I don't know. I wasn't a big Xbox guy, but whatever go button there's on the Xbox, you hit that. But a lot of times you were, 5'7", 100 and how many pounds? In
college, I remember I came to Notre Dame, I was like 5'8", 166. And I left there, I was probably like 170. I could start the season at 175, but I probably end up like 70. So, and I didn't get to like 5'10" until I was like freaking my first year with the Raiders. So I was like a slow grower.
Still growing.
I know.
That's crazy.
So do you ever amaze yourself like, holy smoke? Man. And then what kind of pressure was that for your son at Wyoming being the Rocket?
So watch this. Yes, there was there is like, yo, man, I was amazed. And I have some thoughts on that. But yes, to your point, yes. And I told my son this principle. And there's a biblical principle that gets overlooked in the world. And then a lot of times our offspring, if they're not made aware of this, there's a subconscious pressure that they feel like they can't become or exceed what happened before them. But the principle, when Christ told the disciples, he said to them, I did, and I'm paraphrasing, I did some amazing stuff, but greater works you're going to do. So that principle is in effect, and we all have access to that. But sometimes because of what we perceive as, man, I'll never be able to be as amazing as that, then because that becomes a part of our belief system, that then manifests as our reality. And I said something earlier, we become an unwitting participant to our own demise. Now, one of the things that has to occur in order for that to happen, you have to be able to, as best you can, protect your children from the pitfalls of the environment. And when I say that, for me and for my son, like people would, in his formative years, say if he was at a track meet or something, and his speed wasn't developed yet, they would say things that could injure him. People can say things to you that when you don't know how to protect yourself against them, they can injure you in your spirit, and that wound can prevent you also from being able to manifest the greater works. So it was a process of being able to, I shared that with him, but then it was like you send them to school and they're at school for 8 hours a day. Then they're training with people who may not have the same insight or the same mindset that you have. So when they speak to your children, they might undo what you did, and then you have to, and then sometimes your children, they'll keep things to themselves, so you're not aware of it until it might be a couple of years down the line, and then now you have to deal with it instead of being able to nip it in the bud if you know that it happened earlier. So I know that it was something that he was aware of, but I always was like, son, whatever your gifts are, whatever your ability is, the Most High has given you the ability to, and everything you need to accomplish. You just have to make sure you don't sabotage yourself, and you don't let your environment sabotage that from happening. And so sometimes it takes, sometimes it doesn't take until later, but that was my approach, and I feel like he handled it and handles it as well as can be expected for the age he was and where he is now.
Okay.
That's great. I watched a couple of games. I see you sitting in the stands in Wyoming. Talk about cold. I know you guys are back there. It's freezing cold. Your son's playing. How is that experience for you, being on the other side of it now? Now you're looking at the other he's RAGHIB Jr., isn't he?
Yes, right.
Yes, RAGHIB Jr. You're watching your son out there running around. I mean, we all have kids that play ball and do whatever. Just describe that experience, sitting out there and seeing the different path he's going through from what you did.
So I realized very early from basketball, because I didn't let him play football because he was like me, really, really slight, really small, as fast and all that stuff, but just like tiny. Like when you look at it, it's different than when I'm feeling tiny, but I didn't feel that way when I was playing. But when I saw my son, I'm like, nah, we're gonna I'll let him play basketball. So I learned from basketball that I had to be occupied with something that would keep me, because I would have the same nerves that I had when I played, but I didn't have the opportunity to get out there on the court or on the field to disperse or dispel those nerves. So when it came to watching his football games, once he got into high school, I found that if I recorded everything and just looked through the camera and watched the game through the camera and reminded myself that I wanted to get this footage, and if I looked up to enjoy maybe whatever, that it would take my focus away and then I wouldn't be able to capture it on film, man, the nervousness and everything, I would just watch it in the camera and it would calm me down. And so I became like the official videographer for all of the high school and middle school football games, and that experience helped. Now when I got to college, what helped me was every play I would watch, if I saw something that needed to be corrected or something that was good or whatever needed a comment to be commented on, I would just shoot a text to him so that he could read it at halftime. And so that, like, paying attention to it from his play, paying attention to it from like how he's executing his routes, how he needs to set up this DB, how he needs to block, how he needs to, hey, man, I knew you were going to run a running play on that game. You got to do this to disguise it so they don't have keys to let you know that you can give the defense a heads up. Like little stuff like that, that helped me in the later days. And that's what was and now one game, you talk about cold, bruh. That one game that they had their last game, it was like minus 5 degrees, but it felt like minus 20 on the thing. I was so cold, and I thought I was dressed warm, bro. I had to tap in at halftime and go to the car and watch the rest of the game on my app on my phone. I know this is the last game, but your father might not survive if I stay out here.
That's what's up. Rock, we could do this all day long, my friend. I have so many more questions, but I know we try to keep this to your time, respect your time. So I don't know if you got one more closing question. Otherwise, let's wrap this up.
Nah, I just want to say, man, excuse me, it's been a pleasure to know you, and I still tell Rocket stories, and you were one of the highlights of my career, and one of the reasons why I went to Notre Dame, between you, Chris Zorich, and Tony Rice, man. So I appreciate everything, man. Much love.
Thank you, brother. Love you, brothers. Salute to y'all, man, for doing your podcast, man. Be out here like kings. Be fruitful and multiply, man, so we can replenish this corrupt earth we live in.
I appreciate you, Rock. Appreciate you, man. Take care. We out.
All right, brothers.
All right, brother Slum.
But now the day has come. But let you know where I'm coming from, yeah. Baby, what you done for me?